This is WPSL Port St. Lucie, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL. However, I will say this. You're encouraged to like and share them on Facebook. It's time for the African American Scene from Howard Insurance. Here's your host, Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. First, let me make a confession. I'm going to have open mic night tonight. But this guy here will be very glad when the next 3 weeks are over. The contention, the vitriol, and the tension that exists between the two sides is really untenable.
I do need to say that we will be broadcasting the third and final presidential debate tonight on WPSL.
Beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful. So I just first I had to get that off my, because I posted that on my Facebook page today, and I had a storm of people that came behind me and said, I agree. You know, it's gotten to the point where friends have gone after friends, family members are upset with each other. Wow, it's just unbelievable.
Some couples aren't talking to each other anymore.
Yeah, and some of it, here's the thing. People are so entrenched in their positions, facts have become oblivious. Facts mean nothing. I can never remember, and one of my friends today after I posted this said, who I've known from college, she said, I've never seen anything like this. In my 40 years of voting, I've never seen a cycle that has gone so absolutely off the deep end. And I agree. It's just nuts. Matter of fact, Greg responded to my post too. Well, we're going to have an open mic night, and I'm going to get some of you really pissed off. If Joy called me a racist last week, she's going to really be mad at me tonight. But I'm going to give you some information which is important. But first, we're going to do a little truth-telling. You know I like to do that. And you know, the number is 340-1590. And let me tell you what this truth-telling is about. Mr. Trump has been telling us over and over, our country's in decline, our country is a mess, we are just we're like laying in a ditch about to be run over. Well, let me just tell you this. There's a report by U.S. News and World Reports about the 10 best economies in the world. Number 1, Germany. Number 2, Canada. Number 3, United Kingdom. And guess who's number 4? The United States. And we have a GDP of 16.8 trillion. And we have a population of 319 million. Our GDP is $54,597 per capita. Number 1, Germany, has a $3.7 trillion GDP and is at $46,000 per capita. Canada's got a $1.8 trillion GDP and it's got a $45,000 per capita. And here we are, America, 16.8 trillion with a 55,000 per capita. Now, does that sound like we're in the ditch getting ready to get run over? You know, I understand politics, but, you know, this stuff has ginned up people, and people lack the willingness or the integrity to go out and do some research, because most of this stuff is very easy to find. You know, thank God, you know, with where we are today, and you can find an answer. And Carol gave me something. I don't have time to do all the preparation, but I'm going to get it to you probably next week or the week before or the week after. A survey that they did in Canada where this ad agency went out and asked people what they liked about America. And the response is incredible, how our Canadian neighbors feel about us. But we got Winnie on line one. Winnie, how are you, my friend?
Uh-oh. She disappeared.
She's gone. Okay.
Call us back, Winnie.
Yeah. So, I wanted to just, it was important for me to get that out to you, that you understand. You're being told that we're in a ditch about to get run over and squashed, and that our country is doing so bad, and I'm sorry, it's just not true. It's just not true. So you're getting all ginned up and excited about Make America Great Again, and America is still one of the greatest nations on earth. And we got Winnie on line one. Yes, Winnie.
Hey, how you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
Everybody. Okay, then the debates with Trump and Hillary. You know what, Rudy? Economy. It ain't up to jobs. It ain't up to where it's supposed to be. But to me, I care less who wins out of either one of them. But really, I'm a Trump supporter. He talking about bringing the jobs back and this and that and this and stuff like this here. But I don't care who. I don't care who wins. I done love them amendments. The solar and the American marijuana, so I love those better than both of them. I don't care who wins. Really, I'm a Donald Trump supporter because he's trying to bring the job. A lot of times I say that to get people vote. A lot of times that stuff don't happen. I don't care who wins out of Trump, but Hillary probably get it. I don't care who wins and stuff like this here. But I just called to tell you about the little statement and stuff like that. I'm going to look at the debate tonight, stuff like this here. Anyway, God bless.
Thank you.
You're not no racist.
Oh, well, thank you.
I don't think.
I heard that lady call you a racist, huh? You're not no racist at all.
I don't think Rudy's a racist either.
He's like for all people.
Thank you very much.
I like that. I love it. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Winnie.
Wow.
Okay.
Wait, we now know that Winnie is a Trump supporter.
Yes. Well, hey, so be it. And Steve, how are you, sir?
Hey, Rudy.
How's it going?
Pretty good. It's been a long time.
I haven't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah. Hey, think about this for a minute.
Okay.
Okay. The truth. We talk about the truth all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The truth has no false facts. You agree with that?
Okay, make your point.
Okay, this will be my point. And the untruth can have facts but still be false. Also, facts are not solutions. They have that commercial on television about LifeLock, and I'm just a person that shows you you've got a problem. I'm not the one that fixes them. Well, it's hard to call your show and talk to you a lot of times because from a lot of points of view, you try to ignore other facts and avoid those facts. And so I thought what I'd do tonight is...
Wait a second. I don't know what show you've been listening to. Now, I have stated on... Wait a second. I've stated on here over and over and over again the principle I live by, which is if I cannot support a position, I will rethink it. Now, if I can support my position and you're not able to defeat my position, there's nothing to rethink.
That sounds all good, but I've been insulted on this program. I've been asked if I was drunk. I've been called a redneck. So
I have never called you a redneck.
But there have been other people that have called in, and you didn't defend me either. And I'm not. But I thought from the standpoint, just to make my points and how facts sometimes get ignored, I thought maybe 3 questions that you could help me with, and you answer them because usually you think you have the answers that you've thought out and been a critical thinker about it. So it's not even political. It's going to be outside the realm of politics. And the first question would be, do you, and I'd like Cliff kind of to help me too, because because he can Google search for me, and then we'll look at something.
Only if you pay me.
Okay.
I only work for cash up
Okay.
front.
I've already paid you once.
You're going to have to do your own Googling while you're...
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Here you go. The first question is, do you believe CO2 is causing climate change?
Yes.
Okay, you do?
Yes.
Cliff, look up atmospheric gases of the Earth.
He's wasting my time. I'm producing
Atmospheric
2
gases
shows.
of the Earth. It'll come right. Atmospheric
Out of line.
gases of the Earth.
Absolutely
Steve.
out of line. Steve.
Steve,
Stop.
And what I'm
we,
gonna
Quit it,
say-
Steve. Stop.
we,
Stop.
we've had...
I'm not looking up nothing. You hear me?
We've had...
I'm working.
98% of all scientists have said, wait, just hear me out. Now, I understand your conservative bent, but 98%...
Rudy, now you're in... I asked Cliff to look it up. I'm going to ask
And
you.
I refuse to do
and
so
I'm not
because
gonna-
I'm at work.
I'm not going to look
Steve.
it. I'm not going to look it up in the
Okay,
middle
you
of my
won't
show.
look it up, and I'll give you the information, and then you
Okay.
can check me out. First of all, our Earth's atmosphere is composed of 78.9% nitrogen, 20.95% oxygen, 0.93 argon, 0.04% of CO2. 0.04. That's what CO2 is. CO2 is caused by anything that heats up, by rotting
Okay.
material,
So what's your
volcanoes.
point?
So my point is this: there is more water in the atmosphere in Florida than 0.4%. Scientists are saying this is the fact that CO2 is destroying the planet. I just told you the percentage. You did not know that was the percentage of CO2 in
Steve,
the atmosphere.
and you know what? I'm going to say this to you. That means you are smarter than Nobel laureate scientists. So is that what you're telling me?
No,
That the
I'm
Nobel... Wait a minute.
No.
Are you telling me that you are smarter than Nobel laureate scientists about what's going on with the atmosphere?
Rudy, there are Nobel scientists
But-
that are on the other side of this equation too. It is not 100%.
It's
But that's
98.
one
It's
point.
98%.
Okay, it still doesn't matter. CO2 is 0.04. Look up atmospheric
I'm
gases
not
of the
I'm not going to do that right now.
Okay.
But what I'm going to tell you is,
Then the
you
second
are
point.
a heck of a guy because you're smarter than 98% of the.
Thank you, and I'll use your words. You're patronizing me. I just asked you to examine the facts. The facts are that it's 0.04% that CO2 in our atmosphere, which is caused by volcanoes, it's caused by man, it's caused by breathing,
But
it's caused by
let
rotting
me
material.
let me tell you why that doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you why. Because number one, I haven't had the opportunity to research the causes as stated by the professors who believe that CO2 is affecting our climate. Now, when you give me an opportunity to do that, I'll be more than willing to talk to you about
Does
that.
it seem logical, Rudy, that 0.0
We're not going there because I haven't had the opportunity to provide the background on the CO2 emissions into our atmosphere. Now,
Here's the
if you want to
second
call
question.
me back, in a week or two, and I will go out and I'll do the work, and then we can have this discussion.
But
But
you-
calling me up and dropping the bomb on me with some minuscule information,
It really looks
that's
bad.
that doesn't work. Okay, but go ahead.
The second question then, if climate change is true, do you believe that the glaciers and the ice caps melting is going to raise the water 20 feet?
I believe that the ice caps are melting from things that I have watched on the Discovery Channel. I don't
Okay.
know how many feet it's going to raise it, but I believe from photo evidence that I've seen of ice caps 20 years ago and ice caps today, that ice caps are melting, yes.
Well, glaciers are always melting. They always have melted in part of Alaska. But here's the facts. 71% of the Earth is covered by water. 96.5% of all the Earth's water is in the ocean.
I know that.
That means-
Well, don't tell
that
me
means-
stuff. Don't tell me basic science that I already
I'm
know.
gonna- okay. the
That's
basic
junior. That's
science-
junior. That's junior high science.
No, well then that means 3.5% of the water on Earth is going all because that's all that's left is going to raise the seas 20 feet. Does that make sense to you? But that 3.5% of the water, because 96% is on the ocean, and it's going to have to come from the land, that 3.5% is going to raise 71% of the ocean 20 feet.
Steve, what I'm going to tell you is I have seen visual evidence provided by scientists, again,
And you're
that
believing scientists, and you're,
I
and you're not,
am believing what I've seen as visual evidence of glaciers melting.
glaciers have to be
And glaciers always melt, but at a high volume rate. I just saw something 2 weeks ago on Discovery Channel where they showed the picture of a particular glacier 10 years ago, and they showed the picture today. That glacier has but anyway, we're not gonna do this because this is silly. Give me your last point, and then we're gonna go on, because this is silly.
Point,
okay.
But I make this point because the first point, I mean about the second point. Number one, the North Pole is over water. Our submarines go under it all the time. So if it's floating on water, if it melts, it ain't going to change nothing. It's just like a glass of water with ice in it. So that's kind of a little bit on the crazy side. And the other point that you tried, the question I have, because you tried to insult me the last time you called about me being concerned about your soul, as you said. And you know that the Bible says we're supposed to be concerned about everybody's soul, not those just outside the church, but those in the church. But my point, this question goes back to the point that what is a religion supposed to be called that people pick and choose of Christianity what they want to believe? Is that supposed to still be called Christianity, or is that supposed to be called making your own religion to fit what you want to call Christianity? Do you think that we have the right to pick and choose of Christianity what we want to make of it?
Well, I'm going to say this to you about that. And I know you're leading to a point, but the point of the fact is, if we're Christians, then we try to govern and live our lives by the Bible,
Okay.
which is our blueprint.
Okay.
Now, the fact of the matter is, I could point you to sections of the Bible and have 5 preachers deliver a sermon on that section of the Bible, and all 5 of them would give you a different sermon. Would you agree that happens? Wait a minute. I just want to know. Would you agree that would happen?
No, I would not.
Well, why?
Reason why? I'll tell you a reason why.
Okay.
If you go through the Bible, the New Testament, we're not under the Old Testament. We're under the New Testament. That's Christ teaching. Christ told his disciples to teach them to observe all things I have commanded you. Those things that are in the Bible that the disciples said as a command to Jesus, we should follow, right? All of them. Not part of them, all of them. Would you agree to that?
Do you
No matter
follow
what the preacher says.
do you follow them all?
It doesn't matter whether I follow them all. It matters whether that is what defines.
Well, we're supposed to. The Bible is our blueprint for life, so we're all supposed to follow the blueprint and allow the Word of God to provide us our roadmap to how we should conduct ourselves.
Okay. Then the point is which is the point I'm trying to get at, is that if we don't take the facts in a way that we apply them in a way, either whether it's global warming or climate change, or if we don't apply them in the right way, you can come to your own conclusions, just like you said these ministers did. But
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
No, I did not say that.
That 5 ministers that would come up with 5 different things that will be totally different.
I said they would. I said that's not what I said. I'll tell you what I said. And this is the end of this discussion here. I said that I could take you to a section of the Bible and have 5 pastors deliver a message on that section of the Bible, and each one of them would give a slightly different interpretation of that passage. And you said, no, they wouldn't. And I'm telling you, yes, they would, because I have been in every kind of church you can think of, and I have heard pastors preach on sections of the Bible by 2 or 3 different preachers, and they all approach it a little differently. Because as you go through and look at the Word of God, some people have a different interpretation. Your interpretation, you are not the sole judge of what the interpretation of the Bible is. So when a pastor has been trained, when a pastor has been trained in a seminary school on the Bible, they deliver the word in accordance with what it is that they've been taught. And it may be slightly different than what you think, or maybe slightly different than what I think. And I've heard pastors talk about the same section of the Bible, and I'll tell you one that I heard. I've heard it given, the message given 4 times, and every time it was slightly different. On the road to Jericho, when the Levite and the pastor passed the man on the road to Jericho, and the Samaritan reaches down and helps the man who has been beaten and robbed and puts him on his beast and takes him to the inn and puts him up. I have heard 4 different interpretations of that passage.
Rudy, that is a story in the Bible. But when you talk about doctrine, things that are commanded by Jesus to tell his disciples, I'd be glad to get with you sometime and just we'll go through the Bible step by step.
I'm not going to do that with you, Steve. I'm not going to do that with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then the point being is that facts don't really matter because you've already made up your mind that your interpretation, your facts, which is the same thing you're trying to tell me, is more important.
I never said that.
It is what you're saying.
No, it is not what I'm saying. That's
Oh,
what you want. That's what you
is
want.
my interpretation more than yours?
No, what I have told you thus far is we're not going to have the discussion about CO2 because you're not a scientist, and I don't have.
You don't know.
I don't have the information that the scientists have presented to support their case for global warming. That's why we're not going to have that discussion. And you asked me about melting glaciers, and I told you I've seen the physical evidence that the glaciers are melting. And you're telling me that doesn't matter. And I'm telling you I saw it.
There's not 20 feet of water in that.
Did I say 20 feet? You said 20 feet.
That was what the report was given from England on global warming. And
listen, we're not going to continue this because I didn't say 20 feet. You called up and said, is it going to be 20 feet? I said, it's going to rise, and I don't know exactly how high it was going to rise. Thank you for calling, but we're going to take a break. Okay.
You need a break, Rudy. Take you a break.
Okay.
Let me say something about perceptions. Like you said, 5 different stories of the same passage. It's about perceptions. Everybody perceives things different. And this is the African American scene. And you notice how someone will come in and command the spirit of the program to move away from the issues of African Americans, which this show is the reason for this show. And we have to be real careful of that because point of views do differ. And if we listen carefully, we might just learn something and not need to be so indifferent. Maybe we need to unindoctrinate ourselves.
Well, thank you, sir. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
Perhaps it's perceived by some because Rudy has called the show the African American Scene to help deal with African American issues, which are mostly communication issues between people that haven't been communicating because of social differences, ideological differences, but different perceptions, really. But let's get back on track, Rudy.
We are. Okay, if you recall, a couple of weeks ago I talked to you about this UN report, and I'm going to read a couple passages which is going to lead me to the subjects that I have tonight, some of which are really eye-opening. In this report, this is the report of September 27, it says, citing the past year's spate of police officers' killings unarmed African-American men, the panel warned against impunity for state violence, which has created, in its words, a human rights crisis that must be addressed as a matter of urgency. Then it also points out in its report, lynching was a form of racial terrorism that has contributed to a legacy of racial inequality in the United States and must be addressed. Thousands of people of African descent were killed in violent public acts of racial control and domination, and the perpetrators were never held accountable. That's a really important point there. And then finally, in recommendations, and then when I finish this, I'm going to take you to something that's really important. As the evidence presented in this report indicates, the causes of the racial disparities in the United States criminal justice system are complex and deeply rooted. While the laws of the United States may be facially colorblind, a growing body of evidence shows that the individuals who apply such laws do not make cognitively colorblind decisions. As studies repeatedly demonstrate, the belief that the United States of the present is unaffected by centuries of its explicitly racist past, while perhaps well-intentioned, is at best wishful thinking and potentially blinds decision makers to the implicit racial bias that lingers in the American consciousness. Okay, now, I read that to you for a really important point. I found two particular articles I want to share with you. One of which just absolutely blew me away. On Tuesday, October 18th, the head of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, one of the largest police organizations in the U.S., issued an apology for law enforcement's historical mistreatment of communities of color.
Would you please repeat that? I'm not sure I heard it, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't.
The first time I read that, my eyes just popped right out of my head. The leader of this organization issued an apology for law enforcement's historical mistreatment of communities of color. And he goes on to say, and don't get mad at me, I am repeating what he said. This is not Rudy standing on a soapbox. I'm telling you what the man said. And he says, in the past, the laws adopted by our society have required police officers to perform many unpalatable tasks, such as ensuring legalized discrimination or even denying basic rights of citizenship to many of our fellow Americans. I can't believe this guy. And he said this to a room full of police chiefs.
We have to say here that Rudy didn't say this. He's quoting someone who did.
Yes.
We have to say that, though, because...
Yes, because they'll accuse me of being racist.
Rudy said...
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. And Robin McDonald, PhD, an expert on police community relations, said, it was a statement, first of all, that needed to be said in order to move toward a conversation around healing the community and police working together. And the reason it needed to be said is that it's true. Every law enforcement agency will tell you historically the police departments in different parts of the country abused their power and truly targeted certain communities. So it was a thing that we all knew, but that no one was saying. By not addressing it, allowed some people to think it didn't happen. I agree with that completely. Ooh. By not addressing it, it allowed people in their conservative mindset to say it never happened. And let me finish up here. They've acknowledged it. We understand it. Everyone heard it. And now we can move forward toward positive community police interactions in 2016 in light of the events that have happened around the country. Acknowledging the negative impacts that law enforcement has historically had on many of our communities is imperative in moving forward together for effective solutions to not only race related issues in our criminal justice system, but in our larger society. This guy was courageous. And I have been telling some of my conservative friends who have denied the existence of this that the first place you have to start is to admit it is a problem. And this guy, hats off to him for having the courage to stand in a room full of police chiefs and admit there's a problem that needs to be dealt with. And we got Jay on line 1.
How you doing, Rudy?
Good, Jay.
Okay. Everything you say is true, and if anybody out there is interested, they need to read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. Explains in detail what you're talking about and a lot more.
Yes.
And it explains how it started back with they called slave patrol. Police, that was the police's job. That's how they started out, and it goes all the way through Jim Crow. Lynching. My grandmother, my father's mother, had a cross burned on her lawn in Norfolk, Virginia, back in the 50s.
Yeah.
Right? Because she moved into a neighborhood they didn't think she deserved to live in. And that's never talked about. When they talk about radical Islamic terrorism, what about radical Christian terrorism? You talking about religion? Everybody wants to talk about religion and cross burning and lynching, and on Sundays making it an entertainment to find somebody, a black man to lynch, and everybody come out with their lunch and after they leave church and watch the lynching. This is America. This is what happened. People forgot about all that, or they don't even know about it.
That's where the Sunday afternoon fried chicken at church started.
Yeah, so that's something that's never talked about. But they never want to. When they talk about religion, and that's why I believe the founding fathers made a separation of church and state. A lot of people don't understand that. You talk to some black folks today that they go to church every Sunday, but they can't figure out why the founding fathers did that. There was a reason why they did it. Because they didn't want to go back to England and have religious persecution going on in the New World, I guess. But it's just an education that's lost, and I think our young folks and people of all different races need to understand the history of this country. And right now, you got attitudes in these police departments that has never left. They still have some of them to think that, and the good old boys and the ones that are good cops, they see the evil and the wrongdoing going on. And they're just as bad as the bad cops.
Yeah,
they don't want to. They call themselves the Blue Wall of Silence. I guess that's what they call it in New York. I don't know what they call it in the South.
Yeah, but
that's what happened.
But Jay, I saw one article recently where this young fella, he was a rising star. He was the first in the academy, and he reported a police officer who beat up a handcuffed man in the station. They threatened his life. They busted him. He was going to be a first-time detective in 2 years. They threatened his life. They busted him back. And you know what? He had to leave that department.
Yeah.
That's the problem. But you know what? That I have said, and I am with you 100%, the way to stop it is for the good officers not to tolerate that. Because I know you feel the same way I do. All police officers are not bad.
No.
There's some damn good police officers out there. I know some. But you can't.
Go ahead. Finish.
But you can't stay in that department and know somebody is abusing people. Like Burge was in that department in Chicago for 30 years. And he routinely pulled people aside, beat them up, and over 100 black people are being released because of his forced confessions with unlimited beatings. But anyway, so...
Yeah. There's only one example I can think of that most people know, and they made a movie about it, and that was Serpico in the NYPD back in the late 70s and early. And he went through that because he didn't like what he was saying. And he just went on there to the confidential investigators and turned them in. And he was they had a death thing on him. They had a hit squad on him.
Yeah.
From the NYPD, a hit squad to kill him, and it was a miracle that he survived.
Yes.
When they set him up to kill him, and he survived the shooting.
Yeah.
But that goes on, but it's a widespread. But the thing I want to leave you with, that's why this election is so important. because Loretta Lynch is trying to reach out to all of these police departments around the country and straighten it out. And if we have a Trump in there, Rudy Giuliani or Christie will not do that kind of investigation. I'll just leave it like that. They really don't care about that. You can just listen to Rudy Giuliani. He's like a clown when he comes on TV. Could you imagine him as Attorney General? I'll leave you with that, and all you conservatives to think about that.
Okay,
that's
you,
out
Jay.
there listening. Take care.
All right, buddy.
All right.
Now, here's a piece. Now, and I want you to get this now before I start talking about this piece. This piece was written by David Marcus, a senior contributor to the Federalist. Okay? And the title of this article is "It's Time for Conservatives to Confront Racism." Now, I have a buddy, and he and I have routine debates, huge debates about some of these issues. And he's going to be surprised when I get into this, because this guy has said some of the very same things I've been telling him for months. But let me just tell you how racism works. The other day, I was at Walmart, right? Now, you know I am at Walmart to help people and give consultation for their Medicare. So I was hungry, so I took a break, and I was in line to get a candy bar. So I come up behind this little old white lady. She immediately grabs her bag and tucks it to her breast. And I looked at her, and I'm like, okay.
Like her pocketbook.
Yes, her pocketbook, right? Mm-hmm. So then the lady tells her to pull out her card. So she pulls out her card, and the lady said, well, you got to slide it in here. And I said,
chip type.
The chip type. And I said, ma'am, you got to put it in the bottom. So she slid it in the bottom, and she held on to it. She said, I'm not going to let anybody steal it. I looked at the lady, and I said, I'm not stealing your card. So then I go back to my table, and I put my name tag back on, and I sit down at my Medicare table, and the lady walks by, and you can see the look on her face is like, oh, my God, I was stupid. Yeah, lady, you made a decision about who I was, and you didn't know one damn thing about me. And that is the unbelievable frustration that we have to go through all the time. And don't think that don't bother you, because that does bother you. Now, I'm going to tell you what this guy said, and so much of what he said, this is a conservative telling you how you have to confront racism. And then, and I'm going to read the sections that I think were really important. He says, too often people of color find themselves trapped between a left that exaggerates racism and a right that pretends it doesn't exist. Under these circumstances, it is not difficult to blame them for choosing the former. Black Americans in particular feel gaslighted by conservatives. They experience racism, they explain it to us, but instead of addressing it, we tell them it is marginal, rare, and unimportant, if we acknowledge its existence at all. Now, did you hear what he said? It's very important. He said, we tell you, and then you deny its existence. Casting ourselves as the side of that denies racism leaves casting ourselves as the side that denies racism leaves the left the entire playing field upon which to castigate the country for its inequity. How many times have I told you that you leave the field wide open for the liberals to confiscate all of the support of African Americans. We got Harry on line one. Yes, sir.
Harry, what I want to say is I listen to you all the time, but if we got to straighten out the subject that we're dealing with, particularly with the police, you got to start from the school, you know. Because when you go to the school and you get a description of how they describe, you know, in the small classes, they have pictures that they ask the kid what they think of the persons. and you'd be afraid to see what the description is.
Yeah.
If we have to change that, the grown-ups is already there. Forget them. You got to work with the youth now. You got to start in the school to really let the young people know the difference. And our future might be better. But right now, these old-timers wouldn't change.
Yeah. Okay, Harry, I feel you. But let me finish giving these people the insight. This conservative, I think this conservative really gives some really good input about racism, and he's a conservative. So here's the other thing he says. Racism is real. It happens. It's no good pretending it doesn't. Now, this is a conservative telling you that. And it's no good pretending that police deal with white kids the same way they deal with black kids. Did you hear what he said? Now, this conservative telling you that. He said it's no good pretending that police deal with white kids the same way they deal with black kids. There isn't much more the state can do to promote racial equality, but that doesn't mean there is nothing we as Americans can do. You ain't going to hear no argument out of me about that.
Because we as Americans can do peaceful protests and we can vote.
Right. The very real existence of racism in our society does not justify the left's contention that racism is everywhere and everything. Okay, I get the point here. But here's an important point. Most of us, he's talking about conservatives, most of us reject blatant racism, but for left, this is not enough. The left insists that all white people are the complicit beneficiaries of historical racism. To some degree, this is true insofar as everyone is the beneficiary or victim of history, and sometimes both. This guy is...
The winners write history.
Yeah.
History's written by the winners.
This guy's dropping some knowledge on you. I hope you're hearing what he has to say. That cause is and always has been an irrational belief. I want you to hear this again. I'm going to repeat it. That cause is and always has been an irrational belief that a person's skin color defines them in an important way. Did you hear what he said? That's what that lady did to me at Walmart. She defined that I was going to rob her and take her stuff because she looked at me and saw I was a black man. And what I want you to feel is every time that happens to us, it's like little tiny paper cuts that just keep cutting you and cutting you. And yeah, you don't see it, but it hurts when you get all those paper cuts.
It's aggravating, too, because it doesn't
It's
stop.
very aggravating. Okay, now I'm going on to tell you what else he says. Racism undermines conservative ideals of individual responsibility, freedom of speech, and limited government in ways it does not with progressive ideals. Conservatives do not. Conservatism demands that we overcome this problem ourselves. Okay, I get it. That's conservative belief. Any concept of conservative morality must contain the duty to treat people as they are, not as symbols or reflections of their racial caste. On that moral principle, we have not been insistent enough. Listen to what this guy tells. He's giving you some serious information. Now he's going to give you a couple of steps that he thinks are important, and I happen to agree with him. The first step is mostly symbolic. It is simply to accept the racism that exists in our society and call it an important problem. I have argued with my friend about this 9,000 times. He thinks the issue is ignore it, let the system exist, and it'll take care of itself. This guy is telling you you can't do that. You must first acknowledge its existence and then start from there. A second vital step is for conservatives to start developing and competing anti-racism agenda. How many times have I told you that? I've told you over and over that you have an opportunity to secure African American votes if you are willing to expend the energy. We must demand that diversity and race and culture be treated as a as a conversation, not a lecture. We must demand that diversity and race and culture be treated as a conversation, not a lecture. Okay? And then the third step is to re-engage, and listen to this is important, is to re-engage with urban politics. Robert Traczynski in these pages and Kevin Williamson at National Review have written about how conservatives must regain a foothold in cities. It creates the conditions of crime and poverty that turn fear into racial bias. You hear that? I know people that believe that every city is nothing but full of racists, of black criminals. By opposing and ending racism is not about political survival, it's about creating the level playing field upon which conservatives believe everyone can succeed. Ours will not be an anti-racism of coercion, confession, and castigation. It will be an anti-racism hope, an abiding belief in the dignity of man. For too long, we have chosen to ignore racism. That was what that gentleman had to say. I hope some of you will take heed to some of the words, because almost everything that I read, I believe in. I think he's on the money. I think if you could take the approach that he's describing here, because contrary to what most of you think, we don't want your money. We don't want your handouts. We want to be treated with dignity and respect. Just like I want to be able to go to Walmart and a lady not feel that she has to grab her purse because a black man is behind her.
She watched Cops too many times.
Yeah, right.
She sees the big dark-skinned people getting chased by the police, and she was just simply afraid. Now, that's another problem. We've got a mega fear problem on the planet. There are entire institutions and ideologies based on fear and control. And there's so much of it out there that you could put a finger on it, but when you look down deep inside, you'll know. But
you can,
realize.
Cliff, let me tell you something. If you talk to most guys my age, I can tell within 5 minutes of a conversation whether a person is used to dealing with non-people other than white people.
Right.
You can tell immediately.
Oh, yeah.
The vibe is different.
Well, if somebody feels superior, if a white man feels superior to a black man, and the black man is doing a radio show, a white person who would want to force his superiority upon him, and if he can't cut you down with your facts that you've looked up, then they can probably try to confuse the audience with, let's talk about quantum physics then. What do you know about quantum physics? All right. People that bring up stuff like that you don't have the material to argue with, you throw something back at them like, well, did you know that scientists are now saying that the human being has 15% reptilian DNA? I believe that. I can see it. But, you don't bring it in outside of the jurisdiction of the topics, and the issues of the day that we try to.
But listen,
meet here.
I'm used to him, and you know what? He always wants to call up and be the smartest guy on the planet. That's his MO.
Well, just make him an award and give him an award.
And what he does is he researches information before he calls me. Now, we've heard him enough over the last couple of years. He researches information before he calls me, and then he calls up and hits me with all his research. Now, if he really wants to have a debate, tell me what he wants to talk about. I'll come in prepared because I'm fairly knowledgeable about a lot of things. So, and I've had basic anatomy and chemistry and biology. I'd be glad to have that discussion with you. So, but that's okay. I mean, I understand him. He's been doing that for years.
But you know, another good point though, there is a massive disagreement over whether or not global warming is real or something that's being like egged along to suck money out of us all.
Yeah.
And you've always it's always about the money, Rudy.
Always is. But anyway, I hope that last piece, I really wanted to get to you because I think that conservative was dead on point with the information that he provided and the thoughts that he provided about how conservatives need to end racism. And I hope you will take that to heart because that didn't come from Rudy. That came from one of your own.
It takes everybody. Really.
Yes, it does. I'd like to thank you so much for listening to the African American Scene. God bless and be safe, and I will see you next Wednesday right here for the African American Scene.
Look for the African American Scene channel on WPSLTV.com. That's right. Archives of this show can be found on YouTube at WPSL TV. This is WPSL Port St. Lucie. The African American Scene is just another reason why we are the talk of the Treasure Coast.